Good evening, everyone. Once again, I'm Ed Chicago, fellow city manager of Microsoft, and start and begin tonight by saying thank you so much for dedicating your time and your energy, your thoughts to this really important process. Right? So everything in Palo Alto is a process. And tonight is the third of our community meetings here on the Cubberley site. After tonight, we're going to move our discussions actually to the city council and a series of conversations about this overall master plan and how it comes forward to the Palo Alto community. But that said, I think if you've been at one of these meetings in the past, you've heard us talk about this as an iterative process. But of course, being an engineer, I should realize that unless you're a hydraulics engineer, that term may not mean anything to you. So let me just define it for a second in the way we're using it here. An iterative process is when you take a whole bunch of data, a bunch of information, then you try to throw it on the wall and make some sense of it. And in effect, that's what we've had over the last couple of meetings. And quite frankly, tonight is another step in that iterative process of what you see in front of you being our team pulling together the information that we've received from you to date and try to put it on a plan that takes those inputs and tries to make sense of it. That says, as Bobby pointed out, this is not set in stone. And so based on your feedback, there'll be another round of that. So we really want to emphasize, as she did, how important your feedback is in allowing us to make progress on this plan. As you probably have peeked at the sheets in front of you, what you're seeing tonight and being presented is a lot different from what you saw on the last program, because it actually tries to integrate a bit of new with what's already here on the Cubberley campus. And that will help us scale what's new and what we keep based on funding available, as well as just how the pieces fit together. So I think you will hopefully be pleased with the evolution, the steps that we're taking in the development of this plan. So with that, I think we'll get to it, but we're actually going to show a little video that will hopefully get you in the mood. As city manager, it's funny, you make offhand comments sometimes and people take you seriously. And I made an offhand comment to our team last week and said, you know what? We ought to just, on any given day, go take your phones and go video what's happening around the campus, just as a reminder. We can hear it right now. Again, a little bit of audible reminder of what it is we're here to build on. Because the activity is already here. We just want to make the space match the creativity and the energy. In many ways, it's already here. So next thing you know, offhand comment turns into a video. So with that, Elizabeth, let's go, and then I will turn it back over to our team. All right, let's get to it.
Thank you, Ed. And thank you, everybody, so much for being here tonight. It's great to see such a good crowd, and we're very excited about what we're going to work on together this evening. But first of all, I just wanted to check in on a couple things. How many of you all are 49er fans? Just a few of you? Well, for those of you that are 49er fans, I wanted to pay you a compliment. If you are a big fan, you might know that you beat the Saints last week. And it was not too bad. I mean, it was what, maybe a one score game, but then again, you know, we were playing your second game quarterback and, you know, well, we're in a building here. Or maybe we're in a building a couple, 2, 3 years. But you know, in New Orleans, we do love the Saints, even if they're losing. And I'll tell you a little story that you may not know. Many years ago, the Saints were so bad for so long, but the fans kept going to the game. But they went to the game and they put bags on their heads. Did any of you all ever see that? And that's where the name Who Dat came from. If you didn't know that, because we are the Who Dat Nation. Because with the bags on your head, they didn't know who anybody was. And we're proud of that. We might have to put the bags on our heads again, unfortunately, but we're hopeful for the future. But the compliment that I wanted to pay to you tonight is that on the plane flying here, over half the plane were 49 people. I mean, there was red and white here everywhere. And they were all very, very nice. They were really nice and well behaved. Can't say that about some other teams, like maybe another team that's kind of north and across the bay, you know what I'm talking about? And also that other team that's kind of across away from New York in another state, if you know them, they're not very nice either, but we're nice in spite of losing a lot. And thank you to the 49 families that were so nice on playing fun here. So enough of that. We're happy to be here this evening, and George and I are going to do a little back and forth to prepare you for tonight and our activity. Yes, in the right direction.
Bobby, I can advance you.
Make this work. Okay. All right. Really quickly, our agenda, we've already done introductions. We're going to have a relatively brief presentation to get everybody up to speed. And then we're going to have activity 1 and activity 2. Those are going to flow right next to each other because basically it's a 2-part activity, but we're asking the same questions. So you'll have plenty of time to get into the nitty-gritty there. And then if we have time, we'll do a little report out and we'll talk about next steps. Because as Ed said earlier, this is not the final plan by any stretch. The information that we get tonight is going to be very critical in moving this forward. Okay, so please be sure that you have signed a sign-in sheet at your table and given yourself a name tag. If there's anybody who does not want their photograph published, just put a red dot or whatever dot is on your table on your name tag, and that way we'll know and we will assure you that we won't publish your photograph anywhere.
It works now. All right, we ask this as we start every meeting. We really want everybody to enjoy their time tonight and engage with your group, get to meet your neighbors, share both ideas, be open-minded, and please listen. Listen to what your neighbors have to say, make room for everybody to be heard, and share any questions at the end, either with your facilitator or in your after-action review. All right, so what are our goals here tonight? Our goals here tonight is to review the concept design phase and discuss program adjacencies, the site layout, and circulation and parking. Now, let me give you a little project background. Let me ask this question first. Are there any people who this is your first meeting for Cubberley? Okay, good. We have a lot of new people. That's fantastic. So we want to do a quick review so that we can get you up to speed and then you can participate fully. The Cubberley project encompasses this area that you see in sort of the bluish purple and yellow. The bluish purple is the property that is currently owned by the city. And the yellow is the property that is owned by the school district that will be purchased should there be a successful bond measure. All of these facilities are somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 50 years old. It predates the ADA Act and seismic updates and such. And in 3 years, most of the buildings will be nearing the end of their life, and within 10 to 20 years, all of the buildings will reach the end of their life cycle. So how did we get here? Let me hand it over to George and we will get you all up to speed.
Awesome, thank you, Bobby. So how did we get here? This has been kind of a long and winding road. As Bobby just went over the background, we also wanted to kind of cover the iterative process that was mentioned earlier. So here's our process timeline. So we didn't start from, square zero. There was a 2019 Cubberley master plan in full. And in that one, the goal was to have both a community center and a full high school on the same site. In the years that have passed, that goal has shifted, as Bobby just went over. So that's why we're here for a new updated master plan. We have had 2 meetings thus far, and we are currently in the 3rd one. So the first one was in March and then June, and here we are now. A couple of other dates that are really, really important, Bobby mentioned at the bottom of the screen there. You can see that in March 2026, next year, that is when City Council will approve the final master plan. And then a very important date is November of next year is when the vote will happen to make all of this hard work come to realization. So what's happened in meeting 1? So this is really important to see how we built this up, that we just didn't come up with this overnight. This is really explicitly built with y'all's input, with a lot of input from community, city departments, and all of that. So in meeting 1, it focused on program priorities and adjacencies. And when I say program, that's a different word for uses. What goes on inside of a building? What goes on outside of a building? How can you use that space? So when I say programs, that's what I mean. So we asked people to say, hey, what do you want to make sure is in this future Cubberley site? And so we got together all of the mentions of all of the different programs, and this is our top 10 or 12 or so that were most mentioned. So as you can see at the top, there's a lot of art, performance-based, dance class, art studios, art classes, followed closely by gym facilities, cafe was another big one, wellness center. So a lot of really great ideas, and the list went on and on and on and on. So we're trying to include as much as we possibly can there. So we also asked about outdoor programs, because there's a lot of outdoor space as well. So in meeting 1, a lot of people wanted to see more open green spaces, a lot of open space, but a lot of it's cement. So maybe we could see ways that we can activate that a little bit differently. We also heard playground, amphitheater was a big one, a pool or water area, tennis courts, a variety of other kinds of courts, and then some other walking, biking paths. And so we have all of those program ideas, indoor and outdoor. So that was meeting 1. In meeting 2, instead of focusing on what's going on inside of the buildings, we wanted to focus on the site layout, how the buildings are arranged, what are the main paths, how do you get around and through the site. So for this one, we actually presented the community 3 different options that looks, different from each other, but have a similar square footage, similar space being utilized to see kind of Frankenstein it together into one, perfect concept design if we could. So for the first one, we call this one the diagonal. As you can see, we have this diagonal main path going through. For the activity, we asked people to put green dots on the things that they liked, that they wanted to keep, and we asked people to put red dots on the things that they wanted to get rid of. So couple main takeaways that we see here, a lot of green dots on the 2 kind of bigger green spaces, open spaces on either side. And a lot of people did like the diagonal. The second one we did was what we called the linear one, because it was very vertical and horizontal. As you can kind of see, a lot of red dots, very few people like the enclosed courtyard in that bottom corner. And also some of the smaller green spaces, it seems like maybe the larger open spaces were preferred. And then this last one we call the promenade because of this larger central area. As you can see on either side, a lot of green on those larger open spaces. The promenade was a bit divisive. A lot of people liked it, but some people that didn't like it, they said it was too big. But people who did like it, well, so it's very welcoming and getting people into the site. And finally, at the end of that meeting, we asked everybody to rank each concept in a variety of categories from 1 to 5, 1 being not good at all, 5 being really great, really successful. So you can see kind of a snapshot here. Each of the concepts scored above average of 3, but the most popular one, the most successful one was the diagonal with a 3.84 out of 5. Then we had linear, which was a 3.49, and then the grid was 3.02. And so that is a brief overview of how we built all of this together. We took all of the programming information from meeting 1 and all the site layout from meeting 2 and put all of that together to have what we're presenting today. So I'm going to turn it back over to Bobby to get through the concept design.
Great, thank you. Okay, so today what we're doing is we're going to share with you, very importantly, the phasing of the master plan. And this is important for a number of reasons. With a campus that's this big, you couldn't possibly deconstruct and construct everything all at the same time. The most negative impact of that would be that all the programming that is here would have to stop. And we have a lot of experience in doing these kinds of things because many times school districts, and I know this has happened here as well, have to do new school projects or renovations. And so kids move to a temporary site while that construction is going on, and then when it's done, they move back to that site. So it's kind of moving chess pieces around, if you will. So phasing is very important, and we had to do a lot of analysis and understanding the programming that's here, the new programming that is being asked for, and figure out how to do that in a way that has the least amount of impact on that programming, those programmings, and hopefully can continue to happen. So the phasing is very critical. And so we're going to walk you through what would be the entire master plan and what that looks like in phases. So first phase, we're going to start, if you will, in that back corner, and where you see the red dotted line would be the first part of demolition for this first phase. And just to orient everybody, if you're not familiar with looking at a map like this middle field right there along road, which is right over there, if you will, and Montrose. And so that back right corner is really kind of a little bit behind where the Charleston Shopping Center is, and a little bit past that. So hopefully you can understand that. So with that demolition, the first thing that would be built would be recreation and wellness focus and tennis court and parking. So the tennis courts would be torn down, and there would be a one-level parking underneath the tennis courts to be built on top of that. A 2-story gymnasium. Each floor would have 2 gyms and ancillary programming area and offices and lockers and support room and such. So the purpose of all of those would be recreation, wellness, tennis, and some new parking. And then you see, just going counterclockwise, the next focus for demolition is those buildings right there. And you will also note the 3 buildings, the pavilion, the theater, and building I. Those buildings remain. So the demolition would happen there. And then those 3 buildings would be renovated. So we expand the programming to include education, early education, after-school programs and such, much of which is here. We would renovate the existing pavilion and theater. And really focus on this area becomes kind of the center of performing arts, but also including karate and martial arts and dance and all of that. So performing arts. And then the buildings along Middlefield that you see in brown could continue to remain in use. So this would be the end of phase one. Moving on to go into a little more detail about the program, because I know at the last meeting, some people were concerned because they didn't really, maybe they missed the first meeting, and we were focusing on the layout of the campus, so they might not have felt comfortable that the programming, the program that they really wanted to see was designated to an area. So now we've done that. If I start at the top right corner here, again, that's where the tennis courts are. In the gymnasium, we have lockers, lobby, we have yoga, Pilates, moving around. There's parking at grade underneath the tennis courts, health and wellness programming, preschool in the blue purple area, preschool and aftercare, martial arts and dance, and moving around again, performing arts space, music rehearsal, lobby, theater, a lot of back of house that would support the theater and this pavilion turning into, if you will, sort of a multi-use performance space. And then beneath that, in the buildings that would remain, we have gallery, we have flexible rental space, visual arts, admin, and tenant, and studios, workspace, makerspace, flex and rental. So this plan here does incorporate all of the programming that exists as well as additional square footage. Second floor, again, we have another level of gymnasium, yoga, basketball, and such, health and wellness, rehearsal, enrichment, and dance and martial arts. And there's the one building right there that is a 3-story building that would have that. So if we moved into phase two, demolition, again, going counterclockwise. The next component that would be demolished is right there, kind of on Middlefield, close to Montrose. And then that becomes the visual arts and technology, makerspace and such in that space. And then demolishing those buildings just a little bit farther down Middlefield in that phase for phase three. And there we have the cafe and lounge. That's one of the things that came up a lot in people's requests. A catering kitchen, that's something that is really not available anywhere around, and there's a great need for that. And also people said, you know, we love coming to Cubberley, but we'd really like to be able to get some food. Maybe if we have something like Ada's, but maybe even a little bit bigger. So community services and flexible space, because flexible space is going to be really critical, because by the time all this is done, there'll be new ideas, there'll be new areas of programming. And so we have to have spaces that can adapt to new ideas and new needs. So when it's all complete, phase 1, 2, and 3, we have a beautiful master plan in campus. In addition to saving all of the protected trees, we want to bring in additional trees to create more of a, you know, a more sort of tree-friendly and more densely planted urban environment. A lot more shade, if you can imagine how different that is than what we have now with a lot of concrete and blacktop in this space. Places for outdoor activities, an amphitheater, small group areas, larger group areas, all kinds of opportunities for incredible programming to go on, both indoor and out. So in this phase, I want to explain a little bit more about what happens in the programming. So what you see on this screen, the top is what I just went over a little while ago, but below we have, again, the makerspace, workshops, gallery, cafe, lounge, commercial kitchen, partially underground parking. If you'll note the black dotted line around that area along Middlefield, the plan is to put a half underground parking deck that goes all the way underneath. It would be open partially, so it doesn't require any kind of ventilation, mechanical ventilation and such. And then we can use the dirt that is excavated in order to build that, to create a little more interesting topography across the campus. And then these facilities would be built on top of that area. And again, the second floor, you'll see down below, we have studios and more admin space. Now, I want to point out to you that on the back of your handout, you do have information that corresponds to these colors that shows you that the square footage that's dedicated to those program areas. And I'll show you a slide in a little bit to show you how we have increased that above what is existing today. And again, that third floor dance and martial arts. So just another little quick focus on the outdoor uses. People said in our last master plan and in this one as well, we really want, we have such beautiful weather here. We want to be able to be outside. We want to be able to have all kinds of opportunities for activities, large and small groups. And so in this plan, you see, we do have an amphitheater that would be right in that sort of U-shaped area. It could be that the stage for that is actually built in a little bit under the roof of Building I. And then there's seating that's available on the ground. And then we have opportunities for a learning garden. You'll also note we have at the top of the promenade and at the bottom, we have a place sparker. So this is an opportunity, if those of you that are familiar with the campus, there's a totem right out there. Maybe it's that, maybe it's another piece of public art that's created by artists who are here in the studio. Maybe it's also some really beautiful and creative welcoming signage, but really a way to invite people into the site and to designate the community center as a special place that it is already and certainly that it will be with this new renovation. We also have an opportunity for a cultural plaza. Maybe there's a labyrinth. Maybe there's a way through art or through murals and such to really celebrate all of the different cultural heritage that is so rich in this area, in particular in this neighborhood, in this city. Volunteer, maybe a volunteer. We have heard people talk about gardens. Well, you know, community garden is a little bit of a heavy lift if people are trying to grow vegetables and such. Maybe that can happen, but maybe it's a pollinator garden. Maybe it's certain plants that draw butterflies and other insects and such, and it's something that can also be a learning opportunity for kids in the area. So again, there are many, many programs. Oh, one other thing I want to point out is right across from the shopping center is an area where we have some parking, but we also have designated this, if you see the little green spaces right where Elizabeth's cursor is, this is such that you could bring food trucks in here. This could be an area to program many different opportunities on a flexible basis. So we want to also point out the circulation. This is, of course, very important. The dark blue is the vehicular circulation. And you could actually get in your car and you could drive all the way around. You can enter any of those areas. You can enter any of those parking lots. You can go through them and drive out one way, or you can go and turn around and drive out the way that you came. The little bit lighter blue area is the bicycle area for circulation. And we've set that up such that the cyclists will have as few as possible crossings for stopping. And then the lighter blue is oh, I'm sorry, did I do that right? Yeah, and the light blue is the pedestrian walking paths throughout the campus. So you could come in over by the shopping center and you could make your way all the way across and go to a performance in the theater, or you could park and walk closely right in adjacent to those spaces. So it offers a lot of flexibility, a lot of access from just about any part that you enter. And important to point out the parking diagram. So again, tennis court parking is right there. To the left of that is existing parking. That is actually property that will continue to be owned by the school district and leased by the city for parking. If you continue to go around, the same thing with that sort of rectangular vertical piece, that's existing parking that will stay. And then along Middlefield is where the half submerged parking would be, and then the other little piece right there across from the shopping center. So this plan is one that we say it has a flexible timeline and a flexible design. It offers the most opportunity to maintain programming, to keep things going here, and to pace this in a way that is going to be affordable and acceptable and something that hopefully people will get behind. So phase one, you could end up with that and have a complete program, and then maybe move to phase 2 and 3 and get to the full master plan. So I want to point out this to show you how we have increased what's here, that we heard there's such a great need for more square footage, more green space, more parking if you can increase what you do here. So the existing site has 250,000 square feet of outdoor space, 84,000 square feet of indoor space, and 520 parking spaces. That's what we have right now. Phase one gets us to 390 square feet of outdoor space. Pretty significant increase. It gets us to 265,000 square feet of indoor space, so we can really increase the programming. And another 60 parking spaces at 580 parking spaces. Now, coming all the way through to the entire master plan with phase 2 and 3, we increased the outdoor space to 415,000 square feet. We increased the indoor space to 284,000 square feet, and we increased the parking to 840 parking spaces. So now I'm going to pass it on to George so he can tell you how to get to work.
All righty, thank you, Bobby. So let's get to work. I know it's hot in here, even for us from Louisiana. So I'm going to go through this quick. All of the information that Bobby just went over is on your activity sheets or on the back of your handout for reference. So the activities, it's a two-part activity, as Bobby mentioned. So you have one large sheet on your table, and then you have another one right underneath it. The first sheet is focusing on phase one. What does the site look like and have going on at the end of phase one? The second activity is what's going on at the end of phase 2 and 3, the complete final master plan. Luckily, we made it as simple as we possibly could, that the questions on both activities are the exact same. So after you review the concept designs, you have at the top one of the views with a lot of these spaces labeled. Underneath that, you have the first floor and second floor programming diagrams from overhead. And then underneath, you have an eye-level view and a few precedent photos to kind of get some of the creative thinking going. So the three questions that we're asking you is, what is working well, what excites you at the top? What is not working well and what can be improved? And then finally, the third question is, what are your creative ideas to make this space exciting? So those are ideas of how can we use these spaces? What are some events? What are some kind of almost go, what's missing from these plans is that question. So after you're done with that one, you can move on to the second activity sheet, phases 2 and 3. If you want to spend 20 minutes on the first sheet and then 20 minutes on the second sheet, that's awesome. If you want to spend 5 minutes on the first sheet because you really want to get to phases 2 and 3, that is also okay. Whenever your group really wants to move to the second activity, you can move to the second activity. Whenever you're writing down your ideas, and that is super crucial, that is the most important rule, and in fact, the only rule. Please write down your ideas. If you don't write down your ideas, we won't see it. So all of that awesome conversation you're about to have, please write it down. You can write directly on the sheet. You can write on a Post-it note and put it on the map. You can write in the squares. Just make sure your notes are clear. We'll have a great session. So we're gonna have about 30, 40 minutes to go through both activities. You'll hear some time checks from me or Bobby to make sure that we're getting through both activities. And if you have any questions, I'm sure there's a lot of them. Just please raise your hand. We have a lot of people that are gonna float around, and we'll try to answer your questions to their best of our ability. All right, let's get to work. Do you mind helping more with questions?
Yes.
Cool.
I see lots of hands. I'll just start at some point.